Okay, fam, welcome back. So today we're going to be going over the Grayscale Trusts as well as some dividend declarations and some other things. So with that being said, let's get it. Okay, so the markets have held or I should say the S&P has held that 4,800 level. Let me take a quick look at that with you guys real quick, and then we're going to get into the CPI data because that did come out this morning as well. So we got this insane, absolutely ridiculous rally yesterday where the NASDAQ went up like 11 or 12% or something like that. The S&P was up like 8%. It was probably, if I had to guess, it was probably the largest or one of the largest rallies in history because I don't even remember the NASDAQ going up 10% during the pandemic of 2020. So pretty insane. But I told you guys that we were likely going to hold this 4,800. That does appear to be the case as of right now. There's two reasons for that. Number one, because the previous 2021 peak for the S&P 500 was at 4,800. And the second reason why is because the 200-week moving average is sitting right below that level at 4,700-ish. Obviously, that'll move up every week with time, but regardless, that's what's going on right now. So does that mean it can't break 4,800 and go lower? Well, at this point, I wouldn't rule it out. I'm not bearish, but it's definitely a possibility. But the probability, in my opinion, is very, very low that we go below 4,800 on the S&P, which means, in my opinion, I think the market's probably found their bottom recently. But again, of course, price has to confirm one way or the other. So there's that. Now let's talk about the Fed funds rate. I've already gone over the oversold signals with you guys. That still remains true. Pretty much everything just died in the last week. So that's about the best buying opportunity that I think we're probably going to get for some time. Now, if the markets go lower and I turn out to be wrong, well, okay. Then clearly there's more better buying opportunities. But this is one of the reasons why we always have cash on the side. No matter what the market conditions are, a lot of people will say, oh, you shouldn't do that. You should be all invested. Well, I tend to disagree because there was a lot of people that were all in and that were fully invested when these markets dumped 25% in the last 8 weeks and got absolutely destroyed, completely liquidated, traders and investors alike. So I think there's some prudence in not going all in, especially at the top. Again, like I said, we've done this whole certain amount of cash thing for many years and it's worked out fine. So everybody's entitled to do what they want with their money. All right, so let's talk about inflation. So this is actually the markets, obviously, well, I'm not sure they sold off for this reason, but it may be the case that they sold off for this reason because, again, you got to think about whether this is good news or bad news according to the markets. If the inflation rate is slowly coming down, that could be a good thing because they're like, oh, well, the economy's not falling apart, right? So that's a good thing if the Fed cuts rates in this case because they have the room to cut. But if the inflation rate's coming down too fast, then the markets might be like, holy shit, yikes, the Fed needs to do some emergency cuts. And in this case, it would be a bad thing, right? Because it's an emergency. The Fed has to do it, which means the markets will probably sell off if that's the case. So we're seeing something like that today, which probably explains part of the reason for this pullback. Again, the last read was 2.8 and this read is 2.4. The forecast was in between that. So that's a pretty steep drop for 1 month. Again, the market sell-off, the tariffs. I do think that Trump and Powell, in my opinion, they're collaborating. They're just not telling the public. This is just my opinion, of course. I don't know what goes on behind closed doors, but we saw a secret meeting be announced to the markets between Biden and Powell during Biden's term. So I would not be shocked if this was also happening with Trump. Okay. But I think they're trying to collaborate together to get the country's debt refinanced and to also get the Fed to be able to lower rates and get inflation under control. When the inflation rate is close to 2%, or getting there, that's when the Fed's going to say, okay, we'll cut. So that's what we're seeing right now. So 2.4%. And then let's see, where's the core CPI? So core CPI, right here, 2.8%. So that's definitely a good sign. Markets don't like it. I actually love it personally because, the faster we get inflation down, the faster we can get the rate cuts and the faster we can get to the next big mega QE bull run, right? In crypto and stocks. That's kind of the goal here. So I love it. I think it's great. So let's talk about the dividend declarations. So QDTE, we got, let's see here, 18 cents. We'll go over the portfolios in a minute, or portfolio. In this case, we'll do the portfolios this weekend, all of them. So XTTE, it looks like about 21.5 cents. That's interesting that it actually paid more than the Qs. I find that to be quite curious. Okay, so RDTE, 24.5 cents. I'm guessing next week's premiums are probably going to be pretty ridiculous because this recent pump we just saw. All right, yield max, GPTY 23 cents, LFGY 41 cents, QDTY 22 cents, RDTY 36 cents, SDTY 22.5 cents. My God, there's so many of them. Okay, so ULTY 8 cents, YMAG 10 cents, YMAX 13 cents, AIYY 23 cents, AMZ for just under 49 cents, 30 cents for Apple, DSO 32 cents. Let's see, MSTY is still paying out huge, $1.33, SMCY $1.50. This is, I guess, the inverse Misty. 44 cents for XYZY and YQQ 44 cents. So lots and lots of options there. Okay, so I did not want QTUM. What I actually want to go to here is these two, so SPYT and triple QT. All right, if this thing's actually going to let me look at it. So, okay, so we got 34 cents. That makes sense because the increased volatility in the markets lately. Yeah, that was a pretty insane move yesterday. I mean, my God, I couldn't even believe my eyes when I saw it. I came back from an appointment I had to go to, and I was like, bro, what the hell is going on here? What is this? So used to seeing the market sell off lately that it's like you see this huge 10% rally and you just kind of have to, fall over and pass out because you just can't even believe it. Okay, so 32 cents for, whoops. Okay, I don't know why it keeps going back to this one, y'all. Sorry. Let's try this again. So triple QT, 32 cents. Okay, so next one here, GPIQ. So GPIQ, 38.5 cents, and then GPIX, which is the S&P version. One of these days it's going to pull it up. There we go. All right, so 32.5 cents. So the dividends unfortunately have dropped a little bit on these, but that makes sense because, again, the markets have dropped, right? So as the markets go up, these go up. As they go down, well, they go down. But the good thing is you get to buy shares at cheaper prices. So you guys can see we have record cash here, actually more than we have invested. But that's not true because some of our positions are in a drawdown. I would still say we actually are more invested than we are in cash. But again, the markets have pulled back. So did a cash secured put here for, I believe it was about $70 in premiums. We'll go over that later this weekend for a $9 put here on SOXL. We did tell you we wanted more SOXL, right? We got all these calls and stuff. So we actually sold into the strength yesterday. So it was such a huge rally that we decided to get out of some of these positions. So we sold FEPI, we sold TSLY on here, and SPYI because we're not going to hold those longer term. We already told you that was going to be the case. So let's take a look at SOXL. Okay, so yeah, it's crazy. We were up $800 yesterday. Now we're down $1,000. Wild markets. All right, so 300 shares at 1017. See if I can. Okay, it's not popping. Oh, yeah, it's not popping up here. So there it is. The premium's right there. Yeah, so we bought another 83 shares yesterday at 1256. Probably should have waited for a pullback, but I mean, even at 1256, SOXL is still very cheap. The all-time highs was at 70. So, we don't have any issues with that. It's not a big deal. And we're mainly just holding SOXL right now for premiums. It's not really for a big swing. So more TSLL. We bought 11.7 shares here at 853. As you guys can see, the EMAs, or the price was looking like it was going to go below the EMA on the NASDAQ. So we decided to pick up some, let's see, GPIQ here. So now we have just under 75 shares at 44.55. You can see it right here, the shares that we bought. Okay, so yeah, I already told you guys the 14 positions we plan on accumulating. We also did sell, I think it was NVDY and OARC, a sell order for this morning on M1 Finance to sell into the strength that we had yesterday because we figured that maybe there might be a pullback after that because, again, it was a pretty insane rally. So, and I do remember telling you guys likely, I can't remember how long ago I told you this, but I said likely we were probably going to get some kind of 2020 style sell-off this year, and it appears that that's happened so far. So for those of you guys that didn't believe me, well, you probably believe me now. All right, so let's talk about the Grayscale Trusts. So these things just keep on getting dumped on. Again, eventually when we get the QE, it could just immediately V-shape. Keep that in mind. I know it doesn't look like it now, but that's kind of what I'm expecting at some point eventually in the future. Okay, so the next level here for LTCN, I'm going to go ahead and say is probably going to be right about 470. Just draw a nice little line here because, again, we're looking for structure, right? Kind of some level that was previous resistance turned into support. That's probably where that's going to bounce, roughly about 4 3/4. Target's still going to be up here at 54, 55 for about 1,050% gain. I mean, if you're patient and you're sitting on cash, you can buy down at these levels, these structural levels when you see them. So BCHG level still as of right now 240 to 290 until we get some kind of negating of the support level. If that does happen, so 24 is the target up here. Still up at that swing high that we're seeing right now. Of course, it could go much higher, 875% gain. HSEN, this is the current level still, 140 to 190. And then the target up here at roughly about 1070 on this one. So 650% gain, ETCG. I'm going to go ahead and draw a line here so you guys can see this very clearly. I would say probably right about where this level is currently likely to hold. Maybe you could say anywhere between 490 to 560 here if you're not sure. With the target being all the way up at 1040. So we'll just go worst case scenario and say it does actually test on that green box for 310%. ETHE. So anywhere in this green zone, I would say is good. 1030 to about 1570. Target all the way up here at 73 for about 600% gain. Let's see, next one here, GBAT. I mean, these prices are like, it's hard to believe that they're even this cheap at this point. I honestly didn't even think they would go this low, but I've been doing this for a very long time, and even I'm not perfect at it. So we just got to do with what we're dealt. All right, so 110 here would be the next level for this one right at the top of the green box with the target up at 32. 2,745% gain. Okay, FILG is still dumping off a cliff. It's sitting at the bear market lows at this point. You guys can do what you want to with that. It's never been this cheap before except for one time in history. So it's at $4. The all-time high is at $400. Yeah, if I was looking to buy, it would definitely be at this point. That's for sure. Okay, so 10,700% gain. Again, that's not financial advice, just what I would do. So 225. I'm not convinced it's going to go fully all the way down yet. So 225 to 680 here for the buy area. Target all the way up here at 84 for GLIV. Or sorry, 80 for about 3,400%. G-Link. Actually move this out of the way so we can see it. All right, so current support level 1840 to 2130 in this case, and then the target all the way up here at 225. 1,130% gain at GSOL. All right, so it looks like anywhere between these white lines here, so 6 to about 1020 at this point, and then the target all the way up here at 80 to 115. And for those of you guys that say, oh, well, these crypto coins, they can't go back up to all-time highs, 1,850% gain. I mean, guys, we saw like a 50% gain on SOXL yesterday and nearly 50% on TSLL. Those are leveraged funds, albeit, but that's in one day, okay? And the NASDAQ and the S&P and the Russell 2000 and the Dow Jones were up nearly double digits, almost all of them. So trust me, it's possible. Whether it's going to happen, if it's likely to happen, that's a different question entirely. So support on GXLM, roughly about this kind of 1425 area. Target still all the way up here at 70 for about 380% gain. Mana. I mean, if you guys were looking to do the kind of the Warren Buffett style of investing, I mean, the weekly oversold signal on the RSI may be your best bet. I mean, because it's pretty rare for it to happen. Combine that with some major macro support levels, that could be your best bet for minimizing downside and increasing potential profit, while you're sitting on cash. And, if you're invested in high yield savings or bonds or something, you're obviously getting paid right now. So 160 to 350 here, and then the target all the way up at 70 for about 4,000. Well, huge amount of gains here, 4,507%. Okay, so Zcash, I'd say probably down to 2 all the way up to 320, and then the target all the way up here at roughly about 1050 for about 400% gain. Okay, hope you all enjoyed this content. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see y'all later. Peace.